Welcome to the research desk.
Glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, today we have a very clear mission. We are unpacking a highly specific, densely packed slide deck for you.
Right.
It's titled The Great Compression, AI as Curator Dictator. And we need to be totally upfront with you about this. The architecture of how you consume, how you value, and honestly even perceive culture is undergoing a massive, undeniable shift right now.
It is a complete structural overhaul.
Exactly. The core premise you need to understand for today's deep dive is this. Algorithmic curation is actively, systematically starving cultural variance.
Yes.
And because of this extreme compression of culture, your own idiosyncratic human taste is becoming the ultimate emerging asset class. There is no middle ground here, and this isn't a future prediction.
No, it is a present reality. We are no longer living in a world of selection. We are living in a world of direction.
Direction, yeah.
The title of the deck uses the term Curator Dictator, and that is not an exaggeration. We have fundamentally passed the era where recommendation algorithms functioned as passive librarians.
Just offering up suggestions based on what you might enjoy.
Right. They are now active dictators of your aesthetic experience. They fundamentally alter what you consume. They dictate what you perceive as valuable. And they ultimately forge what we adopt as our collective global taste.
The algorithm is the new sovereign of culture.
It absolutely is.
I want to spend some time on this because it's one thing to say the algorithm is in charge, but the sheer scale of this dictatorship is laid out in a section of our source material called the Common Ground.
The numbers in that section they're wild.
The statistics provided here are staggering. They show the exact measurable dimensions of this great compression. We are looking at a level of market dominance that entirely eclipses anything we have seen in previous decades.
So lay out the music stats.
Right now, the top 1% of music commands a staggering 91% market share.
Which is up from 77%.
Yeah, up from 77. So for you listening, think about what that means. 99% of all artists are fighting over a 9% scrap of the pie. The winner-takes-all effect has accelerated into a near-total monopoly for the absolute top tier of content.
And we have to look at what that level of compression does to the actual structure of the art itself. It doesn't just change who gets heard, it physically mutates the product.
It changes the shape of the songs.
Yes, the source highlights a phenomenal data point regarding song structures. Song intros have completely collapsed.
Historically, a song intro averaged around 20 seconds, right? Time to build a mood, establish a groove, draw you in.
Today, that average has plummeted down to a mere 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
The algorithm demands instant, immediate engagement. If a piece of art does not hook you the second you hit play, you swipe.
And the algorithm registers a failure.
Exactly. So the art physically mutates to survive the algorithm's parameters.
It's incredible to think about. We literally do not have the patience for a drum fill anymore.
No time for it.
If the chorus isn't in my face immediately, the song ceases to exist. And that ties directly into the next data point from the deck, the cultural half-life.
Right. The duration of a piece of media stays relevant.
It has violently compressed from months into mere days. You have this massive consolidation of attention onto a tiny fraction of content consumed in frantic, microscopic bursts.
Then immediately discarded.
Right.
Which creates exactly what the deck identifies as the monoculture effect. This is a crucial concept. When you compress global attention this violently, and when a curator-dictator algorithm controls that attention based entirely on optimizing engagement metrics, you actively suppress black swan events.
Let's define that for the listener, because black swans are the whole ball game when it comes to culture.
A black swan event is that rare, entirely unpredictable leap in style, genre, or thought.
It's the grunge movement emerging out of nowhere to kill hair metal.
Yes. Or the first time someone sampled a breakbeat. They are the unpredictable anomalies that drive true cultural evolution. But under the curator-dictator, an unpredictable anomaly is not a breakthrough.
It's a metric failure.
It is a metric failure. Because it has no historical data to prove it will keep you engaged, the algorithm starves it of oxygen. It doesn't get pushed to your feed.
So the monoculture effect ensures that only the highly predictable, hyper-optimized content survives.
And as a result, true cultural evolution completely flatlines.
You know, I always thought algorithms were supposed to do the exact opposite. Isn't the whole point of a recommendation engine to help niche artists find their specific audiences?
That is the theory.
Yeah, that brings us to a massive structural tension outlined in the deck. It's the collision between the long-tail promise and the entropic death of culture. Let's look at the long tail promise first, which the source frames as the bull case for algorithmic curation. The entire bull case is built on the concept of just-in-time culture.
Yes, just-in-time culture is an environment where the matching cost is reduced to absolute zero.
And the matching cost is the friction of pairing a specific piece of content to a specific consumer who will love it.
Historically, finding that obscure indie film or that underground punk band took effort. It took friction. The algorithm eliminates that. It finds the perfect consumer for the product instantly.
And the source uses a very specific Spotify metric to illustrate this bull case success story. This zero friction system enables 90% of all tracks on the platform to actually get streams.
Which sounds great.
It sounds amazing. The argument is that the algorithm democratizes access. It takes a long tail of niche, weird content and efficiently distributes it to niche, weird audiences. The deck even puts a hard date on when this system reaches its absolute peak.
2027.
By the year 2027, the curator and the creator will completely merge. The AI that generates the art and the AI that serves the art to you will be one identical closed-loop system operating with zero friction.
That is the utopian vision.
Right.
But the data completely shatters it.
It really does.
The bear case, which is the actual reality we are living in, is the entropic death of culture. If the long-tail promise were true, and niche audiences were thriving in a beautifully diverse ecosystem, the art itself would reflect that diversity.
Yet it doesn't.
It does not. The data in our source points to a stark, undeniable reality. There has been a documented 35% decline in timbral diversity.
Think of timbral diversity like the different instruments in an orchestra, the unique sonic fingerprints of the music we consume. The data shows a 35% drop in that acoustic texture.
It's massive.
Essentially, all our music is starting to sound like it's being generated by the exact same synthetic keyboard.
Exactly. And alongside that 35% decline in timbral diversity, genre overlap has skyrocketed from 15% to 42%.
Everything is bleeding into a single optimized center.
You don't have distinct genres anymore. You have a massive, homogeneous blob of lo-fi pop trap that offends no one and engages everyone just enough to keep them scrolling. The boundaries that define distinct cultural movements are collapsing.
This leads to my absolute favorite concept in the entire slide deck. It gives this phenomenon a brilliantly terrifying name: the Habsburg jaw of ideas.
It is a phenomenal analogy. To understand the mechanism, we have to look at the historical precedent.
The royal family.
Right, the Habsburg royal family utilized centuries of intense genetic inbreeding to consolidate their political power across Europe. They kept the bloodline entirely closed.
But that extreme genetic uniformity created devastating physical deformities.
Most famously, the pronounced protruding Habsburg jaw. And it resulted in severe physical fragility that ultimately doomed the entire bloodline. They optimized for power and in doing so, destroyed their own viability.
And the source makes the definitive argument that algorithms are doing the exact same thing to our culture. Algorithmic uniformity is creating a fragile, inbred monoculture of ideas.
Precisely. We are taking the exact same optimized data, feeding it back into the exact same optimized systems, and creating a cultural deformity. The technical term the deck uses for this process in AI is model collapse.
Let's break down model collapse for the listener, because it's a huge piece of this puzzle. When an AI trains on its own homogenized AI-generated outputs, the recursive training loops cause the underlying model to completely degrade.
It's like taking a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
Exactly. Eventually, the sharp lines blur into a meaningless gray smudge. The AI literally forgets the diverse, chaotic human data it originally started with. It collapses into a narrow, repetitive, and ultimately useless singularity of synthetic output.
To help us grasp the sheer magnitude of this algorithmic homogenization, the source provides a framework of 4 specific analogies. We need to walk through these because they perfectly illustrate the trap we are in.
Let's do it.
The first analogy is the shipping container. Before the shipping container, global trade was incredibly diverse, but incredibly inefficient. You had varying crate sizes, barrels, sacks, manual loading.
Total chaos.
It was chaos. The standardized shipping container made global trade frictionless and unimaginably cheap. It came with a mandate. Everything in the world had to fit into the exact same box.
Algorithms are the shipping containers for human thought.
They make distribution frictionless, but only if your idea fits the algorithmic box.
The second analogy is the potato famine. This illustrates the danger of the monocrop. When you rely entirely on a single hyper-efficient strain of potato or a single hyper-efficient type of algorithmic content, You achieve massive short-term yield. You feed millions effortlessly.
But you also create absolute catastrophic vulnerability.
A single blight or a single shift in the algorithmic parameters wipes out the entire ecosystem overnight. Why? Because there is zero biological or cultural diversity left to withstand the shock.
Then we have the third analogy, digital MSG.
Right.
Monosodium glutamate is a cheap synthetic additive designed to artificially trigger our brain's reward centers. It provides massive immediate flavor enhancement without offering a single calorie of actual nutritional value.
Algorithmic content functions exactly the same way. It is engineered to hit your dopamine receptors perfectly, keeping you engaged on the platform, but it leaves you culturally malnourished.
But it's the fourth analogy that we really need to focus on today. This one perfectly illustrates the financial and cultural shift you are living through right now. The source compares the current AI landscape to the Quartz Crisis.
This is the deepest insight in the deck. In the 1970s and 80s, the traditional mechanical watchmaking industry, centered largely in Switzerland, was nearly annihilated by the invention of quartz watches.
Quartz technology was vastly cheaper to produce.
Vastly.
It was incredibly precise, actually keeping better time than most mechanical watches. And it absolutely flooded the global market. Suddenly, anyone could own a perfectly accurate watch for next to nothing.
So the primary function of a watch, telling time, became utterly commodified. The utility value dropped to zero. How does this relate directly to the Great Compression and AI content?
Because AI content is acting exactly like those cheap quartz watches. We are currently experiencing an overwhelming infinite flood of cheap algorithmic content. AI can generate text, images, music, and video with perfect precision, instantly, and for fractions of a cent.
The foundational utility of creating passable, engaging content has been completely commodified.
The utility value of just making something is dropping to zero.
So how do you stand out? How do you become the mechanical watch in a world drowning in cheap quartz?
You have to look at how the mechanical watch industry survived the quartz crisis. They didn't survive by trying to be cheaper than quartz. They didn't survive by trying to be more accurate than quartz. That was a losing battle. They survived by completely repositioning themselves as luxury items. The value fundamentally shifted from the basic utility of telling time to the deep appreciation of human craftsmanship.
The intricate engineering.
The deep tradition, the sheer painstaking effort required to assemble hundreds of tiny gears. The very fact that a mechanical watch was made by human hands with all its inherent imperfections and required inefficiency became the source of its immense premium. The AI content flood is fundamentally changing the landscape of value in the exact same way.
Which brings us to the final and most important section of our deep dive into these sources, the scarcity premium and proof of humanity.
Yes.
The deck describes AI as the Standard Oil of cognition. Standard Oil held an absolute, ruthless monopoly over the physical fuel that powered the industrial age. AI is currently achieving an absolute monopoly over the fuel of the information age, cognition, creation, and thought itself.
It is monopolizing and standardizing your aesthetic experience.
This forces us to ask an essential question. What happens to the concept of value when cognitive labor and content creation are infinitely abundant?
We discussed the just-in-time culture earlier, a world defined by zero matching costs, instant algorithmic gratification, and zero friction. In that specific world, friction itself becomes a luxury.
Let's expand on that. Friction as a luxury. When you can have exactly what the algorithm knows you will click on, delivered in 5-second increments, perfectly synthesized like digital MSG, the act of experiencing something difficult becomes incredibly rare.
Sitting down to listen to a full, unedited album?
Reading a dense, challenging book that doesn't immediately hand you the answers. Engaging with art that doesn't care about your baseline impulses.
Friction requires patience. It requires effort. It requires the willingness to seek out the black swan event that the monoculture actively suppresses. Because algorithmic content is infinite, frictionless, and utterly devoid of a human soul, market dynamics dictate a massive shift in where premium value is assigned.
The ultimate scarcity premium will not be attached to efficiency. It will not be attached to volume or speed or even algorithmic perfection.
The ultimate scarcity premium will be attached to a proof of humanity.
The proof of humanity premium. This is the crux of the entire slide deck. When the entire digital landscape is choked with perfectly optimized machine-generated content suffering from model collapse and the Habsburg jaw of ideas, the only way to signal true value is to prove that a human being was involved.
It's the flaws. It's the idiosyncrasies. It's the wildly inefficient leaps of logic that a machine would flag as an error.
Those are the exact markers of proof of humanity.
It is the mechanical watch. The source states the bottom line with absolute, undeniable certainty. Moving forward, the only remaining premium in the future will be paid for things we never knew we needed.
Think about that.
An algorithm can only give you what historical data proves you already want. It predicts the past. Only a human mind, operating with the friction and unpredictability of genuine creativity, can conceptualize the unmapped future. Therefore, the ultimate premium is called being human.
This directly impacts you, the listener, right now. As the Great Compression continues to force everything into the center, and as the Curator-Dictator algorithms tighten their grip on that 91% market share, your own unalgorithmic, idiosyncratic human taste is not just a personal quirk. It is your most valuable asset.
The ability to identify, curate, and value human friction in an ocean of synthetic smoothness is the ultimate emerging asset class.
The standardization of thought is complete. The shipping containers are packed, the digital MSG is in the system, and the monoculture is the default state of the digital world. The value lies entirely in resisting that default state. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over as you navigate the digital landscape today. If friction is now a luxury, and proof of humanity is the ultimate premium, are the moments where you actively reject an algorithm's recommendation the most valuable financial and cultural decisions you make all day? When you scroll past the perfectly optimized feed, when you refuse the just-in-time delivery, and you choose the inefficient, the difficult, the deeply human path instead, you are actively minting the only currency that matters in the Great Compression. This is the Research Desk officially signing off.